Alright, so I'm going to demonstrate how we would quote-unquote flesh a tail. Now this tail in particular is a Barasinga? Swamp deer, basically, that I was able to receive the other day that I'm going to get salted and taken care of. But, so, let's get started. Now, this is not technically the proper knife for fleshing. I tend to use scalpels when I'm at work, but, you know, this is what I have at home because I have yet to, sorry, my dog is bothering me. Anyway, I usually tend to use scalpels, but since right now I have yet to get a proper scalpel, I've been using this, which, I mean, it is a good knife, but I'd rather, you know, have that smaller sense of flexibility. I am wearing gloves, obviously, because this is a very tricky process. Simple, but tricky. Always have the padded glove, at least of some degree of backing to keep it stabilized. If you slip and end up stabbing something, at least it won't be through, you know, like a latex leather glove. Now, usually I'm working on like a post, but since here I am on a table, it's not as necessary to have my hand directly behind it, but I still need some degree of control in the case that I slip up. Now you see here, you just ever so gently grace the membrane. You know, I've already cut it open, obviously, so you could see for reference. But, yeah, you just ever so gracefully get into that membrane just a bit. My dog is obviously going wild at the scent of, you know, deer right now. And because this is typically longer than I usually work with, this is going to take a second. See, now the closer I get to the part that I haven't opened, the more my hand needs to really be behind it to get that leverage. Okay. So this is the tail end right here. Yes, they have really long, gracious tails, but this is the tail end, which is where I will be initially ripping apart. So, in the typical sense, I'd cut all the way down to here, which I'm going to try to do because my video recording limit is very slim. So, just trying to find a good angle. You hear that? That is the bone that I'm hitting. So you don't necessarily have to push down that hard, but that is a good point of reference, essentially. No need to push any further if you can hear the bone. Now, it may tilt to the side a little bit if you happen to be cutting a tail. That's one thing I tend to struggle with myself even now. But always be cautious. And depending on how bad you tilt, you can still recover it in a sense. As long as you're not doing a cape, if you're just doing like a rug in a sense, or preparing for a pillow or furniture, the quality of scathing the tail honestly is not the biggest of priorities unless they specifically asked for a tail. Now, for a cape, you essentially better know what the fuck you're doing. You can see kind of how I got a little bit closer to the outer tissue on that one because you can see the pores and the hair follicles poking through. But this is a demonstration, and so it's not the worst of things. Plus, honestly, even the most professional taxidermists can sometimes just cut a little too close if they got cocky and sloppy, and it can certainly happen. I've seen it. I'm just still trying to learn how to navigate with, this long gutting knife. I'd rate myself a B on this. But I am trying to eventually get a proper scalpel. I mean, do I technically have one? Yeah, but I suppose I could test it out. Alright, so no, I didn't get a scalpel, mainly because I couldn't find the spare blades. But I continue on to hurry up the process of, fleshing this. So I've made it really thin, or, the leftover amount of membrane is really thin. As you can kind of see, I can just pinch it. And then I also, while doing so, realized the tissue is just exceedingly thin at the end. I didn't actually mess up too badly, because I was a bit worried at first. But yeah, no, it's just very obviously thin, and then gradients into much tougher tissue up at the top here, as you can see. So whenever I get to this degree of thinness, usually I like to just kind of pull at it. Sometimes there's more tougher areas where I'll have to kind of nick at it a little bit. That's usually the case for other deer. I've never done, a Barsinga before, so I might have to kind of nick it downwards a little bit more until I get to the midway point. Let's see. Sorry about my current camera angle. I'm a bit of a rush and I couldn't fix it just right. I rarely ever cut just like that. I always try to get at kind of a 45-degree angle-ish, at most, like give or take 70 something degrees, because it helps kind of use gravity in that sense better and more precision to control, because like doing this, you're hacking at it in a sense. It's not going to, it's doable for certain things, but ideally you want to try to keep it at an angle so you can get the membrane and not cut through and end up cutting through the skin. And that's for, especially if you're doing the rest of the body. You see how it's kind of coming, there. Let's see. And then whenever, if you've noticed that ever, I don't know if it's going to zoom in, if you ever notice this happening right here, catch that immediately and start trying to fix it. Because that means it's about to rip through the skin and the hair is going to come out. You can see kind of like right in there. It's still very attached onto the tissue. Go away, jigsaw. Let's see here. So, what you're gonna want to do is kind of cut right at an angle to get it away from the skin. You see how now it's much looser. And now we'll keep pulling to see. Oh, nope, it's happening still. As you can see, right in there. Just want to grace over it ever so slightly. And you pull. And now I have a Barsinga tail that I'm going to go ahead and get salted in literally about an hour from now, because that's when I have to go back. So under normal circumstances, you just throw this away unless you happen to want to keep this for whatever variant reasons. I am going to keep it in this case because I have yet to ever have any Barsinga bones, and so I'm going to clean this later and get the bones out. Because here, let me cut through the fat just out of morbid curiosity's sake. Kind of get into there just a little bit, because this is a tail dissection video and it'd be kind of sad if I didn't at least attempt to. kind of show off the tail in its entirety. Now in this case, obviously you're going to cut into the bone a lot more. So be very, very careful and not to slip. And this is where that make sure you're going at like a 45-degree angle type of deal comes in. Because then you can gauge it certainly around not cutting your fingers. So I'm just going to rip that off, throw it away, and then rip this off. I don't know how much you can hear my dog in the background, but Jigsaw is exceedingly excited about the different smells this has. She's lurking under my bench. But yes, I'm not going to obviously be able to cut through all the way to the bone thoroughly enough to be showed through. But as you can see, hold on. Let's see if I can, there we go. Kind of, you know, get a better look into it just ever so slightly. Kind of segment this off. Breaking through the spinal cord. And so now you kind of have a better idea, you know, how the bones are. But still, even then, I'm not going to be able to get into it too perfectly. But, you know, I'm going to do the best I can in the short amount of time that I happen to have. So you can kind of start to get a idea of where the bone placement is, because here's a vertebrae, here's obviously the tailbone's beginning, here's a vertebrae right here, you can see the indentions just demonstrated, and then obviously, you know, the point of the tail, the tip, it's a lot easier to see too, as it is quite thin. And so I will clean the bones, and then I will have, you know, the bear singing bones later. And I'm not demonstrating that for this video, obviously, but still. And so here's the tail. You know, it's cut open. It's going to be salted, shaved, etc., to where it is a proper tail. If there's any questions, you can always check out my Facebook page or Instagram, or mean, I guess you could always message me on Twitter if I'm ever remember to answer those messages. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this interesting little mini documentary. Yeah, leave.